What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Oak Tree Football channel. And in today's video, we will be doing another 2020 college football record prediction video, looking at the schedule and giving a record prediction video. It's actually the second I'm doing today. If you didn't check out the first one, I did Florida, so go check that out after you've seen this one. But today we will be doing Oklahoma. So Oklahoma, since the college football playoff, has actually made it 4 times. They've been very, very successful. And a big part of that is their head coach, Lincoln Riley. I think Lincoln Riley is one of the best head coaches Oklahoma has ever had. Obviously, Bob Stoops was also good at times, but there was also times when he wasn't great. Lincoln Riley has been pretty good for basically the entire time he's been at Oklahoma. And one thing that he is very good at that we have seen is how he uses his quarterbacks, because this year he's going to have his 4th quarterback in 4 years, which is a bit worrying. But the first quarterback he had won the Heisman Trophy. The second won the Heisman Trophy. The third got second place in the Heisman Trophy. And now Spencer Rattler's coming in. And I mean, there could be something there. Spencer Rattler was a very, very high. He was a very big recruit, I believe, last year. So he could definitely be a very, very good player. And especially with who he has at his head coach, they could definitely be a good team. They're losing some talent, specifically, of course, their quarterback. But also, I think the biggest loss is wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. That's a huge loss. They're also they're losing a lot of talent. They really are. They should still be a good team. They are still one of the best teams in the Big 12. But they are losing a lot of talent. Also, Kenneth Murray went to the draft. He was a very good linebacker. So they are losing a lot of talent. But yeah, with all that said, let's get into looking at the schedule. So they went 12-2 last season. They made the playoffs for the second year in a row. Before losing to LSU in the semifinal. They had the 11th best recruiting class, which is one of the top in the Big 12. It might be the top, I'm not sure. But let's get into looking at their schedule. Week 1, they play Missouri State. This should be an easy game. Missouri State is just not that good of a college football team, and they're not the only team that I've said this about, but if you've been watching my prediction videos, multiple colleges have an easier game to start the season, such as Oklahoma, and I think that's good because that really gets them back in the mindset of football, and especially with new players actually having to play now, it really gets them into the feel of the game for tough games ahead. So it's very good to start off with an easy game, and Oklahoma is doing that. I think that's going to give Spencer Rattler some confidence. I think that's going to give a lot of their players some confidence going forward, and being able to win some games. Week 2, they already have a very, very tough game, and that is against Tennessee. Tennessee, I think it will be a top 25 team this year, or at least be close. They aren't a tough SEC, but they are still one of the better teams in the SEC. This game is that Oklahoma does have the home field advantage here, but that does not take anything away from Tennessee. It might take a little bit away, but Tennessee is still a very, very good team, and especially now with Oklahoma losing some talent, this is definitely a game that Tennessee could win. I do believe so. Tennessee really had a great end of the season last year, and I think they'll have a really good year this year. I'm not sure if they're on the level as some teams, such as the top teams, are, which I would include Oklahoma as a top team. I don't know as much anymore, but especially last year, I would have them as a top team. But this is going to be a very tough matchup. It's going to be an entertaining matchup, and I can't wait to see how it ends up. I think it can be a very, very close game. But at the end of the day, I do think Oklahoma, I think they're similar rosters, but I do think Oklahoma's roster is a bit better, and just because they're at home, I do think they will win this game. Then they have a bye week, and then they have their first away game, and it's against Army. When you really think of top college football teams, I would say that Army doesn't come to mind for most people, but Army is no joke. Army is pretty good college, and could actually put up a very, very good fight for Oklahoma. They are coming off a bye week, which is good. But that does not take anything away from this game. It's going to be a tough, tough game. And it really starts a chain of tough games for Oklahoma because they have this one, and then we'll get to the other ones in a second. But this could actually be a game that Army wins, and I would not be surprised if Army puts up a fight or even wins, especially being at home for this game. This is going to be a big challenge for Oklahoma, and I think at this point in time, they could only win one of their first 3 games this season. I don't think that'll happen because I do think they will be able to beat at least one of Tennessee or Army, but it's possible. I think that they only have 1 win at this point in the year. And then, like I said, their schedule just gets harder. Then they have Baylor at home. Baylor is still a good team. They're just not great. But they are still going to be a tough team, and they could be, I think, close to a top 25 spot. They're just are losing a lot of important players and coaches, especially Matt Rule, who is now the head coach of the Carolina Panthers in the NFL. I think that was well deserved. He was a very, very good coach. Baylor is not going to be as good this year. There's definitely going to be a regression, but I do think they still will be a good team. And this will be a tough one for Oklahoma. So this is honestly, it's 3 tough games in a row if you count the Tennessee game. Obviously, there's a bye week there, but it's still really 3 tough games in a row, and these are all losable games. I don't think Baylor is as much of a losable game as Tennessee and Army, but I could see them putting up a pretty good fight. But I do think Oklahoma will probably be able to get that win. And then week 6, they play Texas in Dallas. So this is basically a home game for Texas. I mean, it is not. It's at a neutral stadium, but it's basically a home game. It's close to a home game for Texas because they are still staying in Texas. They're in Dallas, similar to the Florida-Georgia game, which is in Florida. It's just not where Florida normally plays. It's in Jacksonville. So that I would say that gives Texas the home field advantage in this game. And this is going to be a tough one because Texas is a team I think can be ranked this year. I do think the same about Oklahoma, but this is just such a tough stretch for Oklahoma. Especially coming off games against Army and Baylor. I think it's good that they're coming off a game against Baylor because Baylor's probably the easiest game in the stretch, I would say. You could make an argument for Army, but I think it's Baylor. So I do think they might be able to edge them out with a victory here, edge Texas out with a victory, but this is going to be a tough, tough game. And I would not be surprised if Texas gets a win in this game. But I do think Oklahoma might be able to get the win. Then week 7, they're at Iowa State. Iowa State is a team I think that will be ranked this year. A lot of the teams that Oklahoma plays this year, I think it will be ranked. I just think they'll be on the lower half of being ranked. This game is their first game that I really, really could see them losing. I could see them losing in all these other games except for Missouri State. But this is the one that I seriously think that there's a large chance that they lose on the road, coming off one of their tougher games this season, and against a tough team. That's not good. That is not what you want. And I do think that Oklahoma probably has the better roster, but that's not taking anything away from Iowa State. They have a very good roster. They're a very good team, and I think this might be a loss for Oklahoma. I really do think that Iowa State's a great team. I think they'll have a really, really good year, and I think that they might be able to beat Oklahoma in this game. They have a very good chance, I think. And then it gets potentially, you could make an argument that it's even harder against Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State is a better team than Iowa State, but this game is at home for Oklahoma. This is a tough game. It's a tough game, especially on the defensive side of the ball for Oklahoma. They need to stop Chuba Hubbard, which is tough because Hubbard is one of the best running backs, potentially even the best running back in college football. But I do think that Oklahoma is the better team than Oklahoma State. That being said, I'm not counting Oklahoma State out at all in this game. I think Oklahoma State might actually have the upper hand here against, coming off probably their 2 toughest games this season against Texas and then Iowa State, and then having to play probably their toughest game of the season. Their 3 toughest games of the season are in a row, and then there's 3 tough games before that as well. It's not a good stretch for Oklahoma, and we might see some losses in the stretch. We could see a lot of losses in the stretch, maybe even 3, potentially even more than that. That's not a good stretch. Especially that's not going to give them confidence if they lose one game, or if they lose one of these games and the other games they win but they're close. That's not going to give them that much confidence going forward. Especially Spencer Rattler. I don't think that's going to give them much confidence, and that's not good. So Oklahoma State's a very tough game, but then they have an easier game. It's on the road, but it's against TCU. TCU is losing probably their best player in Jalen Rieger. They're losing actually a lot of good players, also Ross Blacklock, and a few others that went to the draft. So TCU is not a team I expect to be good this year. They weren't that good to begin with, and now that they're losing talent, I don't think they will be that great this year. So I think that should be a pretty easy win for Oklahoma. And I think the same against West Virginia. It is on the road. I think West Virginia could win at home. But I mean, they are not the best team, really. They were a few years ago. They were a pretty good team a few years ago. But after losing a lot of talent, especially like losing Will Greer, we could see the impact that made with Will Greer and then without Will Greer a year later. So they are losing. Well, they've lost talent, and they don't really have a great player, a fantastic player that can really lead this team anymore. I mean, it is at home, which I could see them actually putting up some points, but at the end of the day, Oklahoma is a very, very much better than West Virginia, and I do think they should be able to get that win. Then they play 2 games, Kansas State and then Kansas, 2 not very good football teams. The 2 Kansas teams, not good football teams. And I do think Oklahoma should be able to win these games pretty easily, especially being at home. I do think they should be able to win these games pretty easily. So I think they have at least a 4-game win streak here at the end of the year, and I think that can make that 5 with a win against Texas Tech. It is on the road, and Texas Tech actually has some good players on the roster, but they are just not as good as Oklahoma, and they're not as good as some of Oklahoma's opponents this season that can actually give them a challenge. I think Texas Tech might be able to give them a challenge, but it shouldn't be too much of a challenge, and I don't think that Texas Tech will be able to win. So now, like I always do, I'll go through the games once again, and I'll give a prediction for who I think will win. Week 1, Missouri State, I've already said this should be an easy win. Week 2, Tennessee, I think that Oklahoma will win this game, just because they're at home. If it's on the road, I don't know. They could 100% lose. But because of that, I think they will win. Then they have a bye, and then against Army, tough game. But I do think Oklahoma will win. And I think the same about Baylor. I mean, Baylor is a good football team. They're not as good as some of Oklahoma's other opponents, and definitely not as good as Oklahoma. So I think they'll be able to win there. So I think they're undefeated at this point of the year. And then they have their 3-game stretch, which is very, very tough. I mean, they've already had 3 tough games, but this is an insanely tough 3-game stretch. Texas, I do think that Oklahoma is the better team than Texas, and because Texas doesn't have like a real home field advantage. They kind of have a home field advantage, but it's not like a real home field advantage, if you know what I mean. I do think Oklahoma should be able to win this game. That does not mean they will be able to. I'm saying they should be able to win this game. But Week 7 is where I think they'll lose at Iowa State, coming off one of their tougher games, which I think will be close if they even win it. And I think they're going to lose this game. Iowa State's a very good football team, and I don't see Oklahoma winning. Week 8, this is also a very tough game, and I could see them losing, but I think they will beat Oklahoma State. Very, very close, but because it's at home, I think they'll win. And then I think they'll go on a 5-game win streak, beating TCU, West Virginia, Kansas State, Kansas, and Texas Tech to have a record of 11-1 this season. If they're going to lose one game, I think their loss is either going to be against Iowa State, like I said, or against Oklahoma State. It could also be against Texas or Tennessee or any of those teams, but I think those are the 2 most likely. I think worst case scenario, they could win I mean, they could lose potentially even 5 games this season. If Spencer Rattler does not turn out to be a good quarterback, they could lose that many games. I do not think that will happen, though. I do think that they will be able to be a good team, and I think they'll be top of the Big 12 this season. Yeah, that's what I think about them. I think they could lose all 3 games in that 3-game stretch. That 3-game stretch is just so hard, and I think they're guaranteed to lose at least one of them. I could see them losing 2, potentially even 3, and then with the other tough games as well. It's just 6 games in a row, very very tough games against teams that have potential to be ranked this year. So yeah, that's what I think about Oklahoma. What do you think about Oklahoma? Tell me in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. And if you're new around here, or just haven't already, feel free to subscribe for more daily NFL and college football and just football content in general. Every day, we have more football content. But that's going to be all from me for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.